Okay, so we are ready for you. Thank you so much. You can get started. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sudha's class on inclusive AI. Because Sudha is the leader here, so I'm going to push all the marketing, to her. So today I will start with her saying, that this is she has put together a whole series of classes for you on inclusive AI, on ethics, AI ethics, and also we will touch upon the big ocean called emotion AI. And it's a very turbulent ocean, so I don't want to actually get into the deep end of it, but I will introduce that to you in the actual class that is coming up on Tuesday. But mostly today, I'm going to talk about what we will cover on Tuesday and what we will cover in the actual paid courses. And if this interests you, then you can actually join that. So Sudha, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you so much. So previously we had offered a course called Career Pivot to AI Ethics. And you had taught data bias, and we had two masterclass already from Diawin from AWS and Ankita Joshi from General Motors. And now we have this as the next level class. So we have some people who are asking me, is this a repeat of the previous class? Is this a different class? So you can still take Career Pivot to AI Ethics. It's available as an on-demand recorded class. But this is the live class with Susanna Raj, and it is her class. And she will build on what you learned about different types of bias in data to actually take it to the next step to make it inclusive. So this course is called AI Ethics, Inclusive AI. And so if you want to learn inclusive AI, did not even know anything about AI ethics, doesn't matter, you can still join. If you're a previous student who wants to kind of continue the learning and now learn inclusive AI, you're welcome. And I can see some people who are already signed up who are here for the next round class. So back to you.
So let me see if I can share my screen. That works. Let's see that. All right. So I'm not going to go full screen because then I cannot see anything other than my own slide. So here is, I'm not in present mode, but I'm going to start with this image. This is not an actual image of the ad. This was about, I'm going to talk about an ad that I saw for a technology company back in 2015 or 2016. It was a different picture. It was a different, modernistic, futuristic world, imagined, but it was a much better picture than this one. This one I just picked up on Google. And there was a caption next to it, which is not what I have here, but it was similar to this. And it said, we have imagined your future for you, or something like that. And you can come live in it. It was, of course, all ads are very pretentious in how they, project their messaging. But this one came at a time when I just came out of a meeting where we were trying to build a data set, build a, diverse demographic data set for a project. And I came out of a meeting and I was asking for more time to include certain demographics from a socioeconomic background, from a gender background. And there was not funding given for that extra time. I just asked for one more week to bring in more people so this data set will be diverse and equal. And there was a lot of argument on why that is not needed at this stage. We are just evaluating an idea, and to evaluate an idea, you don't need that kind of diversity in the data set itself. You can just go with whatever is available, which is convenience sampling, which is actually bias sampling. If you have taken my previous course, you would have understood what I'm talking about here. So it came out of this, and this ad was, I saw this ad somewhere, and it really, usually I am very big on, I just fall for all kinds of ads, whatever product ads, especially technology ads. But this one, the messaging on that really felt very insulting to me, because it said, we have imagined your future for you and we want you to come and live in it. And I was not even part of the imagination. I was not even part of the city that you are building for me. I was not part of anything. It was just so pretentious of whoever was the person, the corporate company, and whoever they paid to even think that that was okay. And maybe the messaging was like something like, we have now built this great technology and we have, we know how to do this. Maybe that's what they were trying to say. But at that moment, it felt like, oh, this is it. This is what they are doing. They are building and imagining worlds for us to come and live in it, but it doesn't include me at the table, and it doesn't include you at the table. And that is what inclusive AI is all about. It is, if somebody asks you what is inclusive AI, to me, that's what it means. Actually, this is the slide that goes ahead of that one, but I started with that one because you cannot answer what is inclusive AI without understanding the psychology and the environment that in which technology is now built. It is now built without the input of everyone at the table. And inclusive AI, to me, in a nutshell, is to have everybody at the table. And what does that mean? If we were to change the theory behind this ad, the people behind this ad, and convince them to imagine a future that includes you and me, then we have to have all of these things in place to build a team or build an environment, build a product, build a company. And I will cover most of this in detail in the class if that's something you guys are interested in. But as Sudha, said that we will go along with what you want to learn out of this. So for me, this is actually, if you look at all inclusive AI courses and, articles and research papers out there, they all call this by different names and they have different, structures put in place. But I want to make it simple for everyone to understand that at the core of building an inclusive product, an inclusive AI product or a system, you must have all of these in place. At the very beginning, you must have people who have different lived experiences as subject matter experts at the table. And you must have them at every stage of the development. And it starts at the beginning of the stage, which is, conception of your idea, when you're testing and you're trying out your idea and seeing, does this work or not? Is this a viable product or not? Even at that stage, you must have people who come from with different lived experiences. For whom you are building this product, they must be at the table. And these are not, experts like, I'm not talking about you should have a degree in that field, whatever the subject is, but I'm talking about actually, people who live in the environments where your product is going to be deployed, where your product is going to be used. So you must have them at the table. And second thing is you must have different disciplines. By different disciplines, everyone talks about, having different genders, different ethnicities, different demographics at the table, but nobody talks about having different disciplines at the table. And by bringing different disciplines at the table, that person is going to bring a different perspective to you that you may not even have considered. So those different disciplines are, you should have an anthropologist, a psychologist, a business person, a legal person. You must have somebody from all of those disciplines at the table. And I was yesterday, while preparing for this, was listening to Noelle Silver. She is a very well-known public speaker on inclusion and inclusive teams and inclusive products. And she was saying that different disciplines actually requires you to have money. So to me, I put that diagonally funding there, but that funding, actually goes throughout the whole circle. She said diversity is expensive And for you to have different disciplines at the table, you must have funding. And the funding is not actually to bring them to the table. The funding is for you to wait for them at the table. She said, you must have a hole in your team and you must be able to have the funding and the resources to have the hole in your team until that exact person comes and joins you at the table. And that was something I never thought about. But now when I think about she is right. You can't, it's not just, let's hire all of these people and it's an anthropologist or psychologist. Are they expensive to hire? Let's bring them there. But if they are not even there, and if the person with a lived experience is not there at the table, you wait for them. When you wait for them, that's money. At corporate level, every waiting period is money. Like I told you before I saw that ad, I asked for 1 week's time. That 1 week's time was several $1,000s. And they were not willing to give that time because it's going to cost money. So she said, having that hole in the team and waiting for that person to come and join the table requires money. And so it requires funding. So diversity is expensive, she said. And I do agree with that. And the other one is global perspectives. Whatever product you are developing, whatever solution you are developing now, you may be trying to solve a very niche problem in your industry. And you may not even know that that technology that you developed can now be adopted by other people, by other countries, by other industries. So you must have this global perspective that one day this thing, whatever is that I'm developing, will now be used by millions of people in different countries. How will that impact them? Have a global perspective on it. Not just have a global marketing team for your product, but understand the global perspective, the global impact of your product. You must have that also at the table. And that requires, again, money and funding. So you must be thinking, why is money and funding not at the center? But I will get to that because the one that I put in the center is the most important thing for all of this. And the other one is safe environment. A safe environment is when an anthropologist is in a room full of engineers and trying to raise an issue, he or she should feel safe enough to raise that issue, to have her voice heard, his or her voice heard in the room, to have that emotional security, the psychological safety in the room and at every step of the process. It's very, very crucial. And that safe environment also includes everybody at the table giving that person equal value, equal impact, input value to their inputs. That is right now almost zero in companies. People have these, tokenized, representation of different disciplines. They have now started to play the game really well. So it's like, let me have all the demographics in there. Let me have an AI ethicist in there. Let me have an anthropologist there. Let me have a psychologist there. Let me have an ethnographer there, a data scientist, a legal person. Let's have all of them there. But none of them have the same equal power, equal, emotional security to talk in the same way that other people who are directly developing the product have. So that's a safe environment. And the second one is to have pauses built in. Pauses are not, in the corporate industry right now, a pause is considered almost sacrilegious. It's like you call for a pause and everyone thinks you want to live in the 18th century. And that's not what a pause is. I don't want to go back to wearing long frolicky gowns and also covering myself in extra clothing or, going back to the days without electricity and having candles at my home. No, I don't want to go back there. When I call for a pause, I'm calling for a pause in 2021. Whatever time zone I am in, I'm calling for a pause to stand there and think before I put the next foot forward. And to have these pauses built in at every stages of development of the AI ML life cycle, which I talked about a lot. and there is actually a diagram also that, I can show it to you again. But during all of those, stages of development, you must be willing to have those pauses built in. Let's pause for now and see whether this is actually a good idea to bring forward. Let's think about it. Let's see if you have all of the other, structures in place, people will naturally bring that up to you, and they will bring those pauses back to you. Maybe it's a 1 day's pause, maybe it's 3 days pause, maybe it's 3 weeks pause. Right now, there is a pause being called on facial recognition. Amazon, IBM, all of them have now called for a pause and put a full stop to it for now, temporarily. And then there is also the ban or the moratorium being called by the UN and by other agencies on emotions AI, which we are going to talk about in our class later on what emotions AI is and whether it can be, should be built, or will it be ever be okay to build it. We will talk about that later, but there is a pause being called on it. And there is a reason for that pause, but I feel like it's like the monster has already been let loose into the environment, and now we are pulling the leash back as quickly as we can and then saying, oh, let's pause now. It's a little too late for that pause. So that pause may not actually work in, but if you had pauses built into your development cycle, then that would have been a much, versatile and probably a better profitable way to actually achieve this. And it all comes down to profit. When we are talking about corporate, systems, AI systems being built, it's about profit. And you cannot be like a little monk, somewhere in a forest and talking, let's not worry about money. Let's all, live on air and water. It's not going to work. It's all coming down to money. And all of these things will have money built into them. So funding is a major component. Sorry. Major component of all of these structures. But the most important component of this structure of this system, I think, in order to build an inclusive AI, is the power structure. There must be an equal, I wish I could build a diagram, that shows equal distribution of power among all of these sectors. There must be an equal distribution of power in all of these, portals that you have for building an inclusive AI system. And the power structure I'm talking about is that it should come from bottom up and top down, both ways. It must be, in order to build a safe environment, you must have, a power hierarchy that works, that, welcomes diversity in opinions, diversity in, thought, and, it welcomes everyone in the room to talk on their show. And we cannot keep on talking. You cannot just go on and on and on and talk. Sometimes people like to take whatever podium they are given and they just want to run with it. You cannot do that, but you must be able to say, I took your input, but it not just at superficial value. I took your input and I'm going to implement it because I have already built a structure around it where your input will be heard. And that's what I mean by power structures. And right now, we don't have that. There is no company that I can point to now and say that is there. Right now, that's a very, very sad state in technology now that we don't have those power structures built in. But maybe by talking about it, we can get there. All of these, circles are already in place in some form within companies now. What is missing is that middle hole in there. All of these people don't have any power and they don't have equal distribution of power to achieve what they wanted to achieve. So that is where we are trying to go in now and trying to see if we can distribute that power equally. And there are different AI ethics have different, opinions on that. Some believe in audits from the outside, some believe in regulation from the government. But all of those things are going to achieve a certain level of, equality in the system itself and help us build more inclusive AIs. But within your company, within your department, when you see the power structure is not equally distributed to have a, have build an inclusive AI system, then it is also your job within that company to see that power is equally distributed, to actually call it out and talk about it and see what you can do to bring that in. And I want to talk about how you can do that regardless of the federal regulations, the government regulations, the compliances, the audits, the internal audits, external audits, third-person audits, benchmarks, all of those things that are being talked about. To me, you can, as a single person, do a lot to make sure this power is distributed. From my own experience, that is what I did. I stood up and continue to stand up. If the 1 week time wasn't given, I tried to run around and finish that in 3 days so I can still save money and actually show them by having a very diverse demographic in the data set, even at the ideation stage, that you are able to build an inclusive AI system, and that AI system will actually be beneficial and your product will be beneficial. One area of funding that I used continuously in order to break through this power structure is this funding is nothing compared to when if you launch this and this goes the wrong way, there is a PR nightmare. That funding is going to be huge for you and your company. And I used to play that game and I used to tell them, if there is a lawsuit on this, what will you do? How much millions of money will be spent on that? How much, what is the, economical impact for the corporate company? You can talk about the social impact. Not that people there inside corporate companies are evil, but they are not, going to sit and listen to your lecture on the social impact in the same way that they will actually pay attention to you when you talk about the economic impact on their wallet. And that is the one that I used to actually negotiate for more time. And sometimes I would get that 1 week. Sometimes I would even get that 2 weeks. And then I would say, this is how we did it. Look what the benefits are by doing this. And also prove to them that, yeah, you can build a diverse data set. You can build inclusive AI systems by having everything in place. It's not that hard. It's not hard for me to find in that example that I was giving you. I was asking for people from different age groups and from different genders and socioeconomic backgrounds. And the whole project itself was so proprietary and so IP protected. We cannot even take the initial volunteering team for the pilot study from anyone outside, not even outside the department. It had to be within the department. So I walked around for a whole week, walked from floor to floor, and I found people who were from different economic backgrounds. I can tell you how I did that without being intrusive, and also without being intrusive on their privacy. And I also found people who are older, younger, and from different genders, different marital backgrounds, and all of those. And I managed to convince all of them to come and be part of this, pilot study itself. By doing that, I was one person, single person. I managed to crack through that power structure and say, she can do it on her own in 1 week and get this done. It's possible. By showing that it's powerful, that it is possible, I was able to powerfully break through, or I make a crack in that middle circle. And then I was able to draw the lines around all of those, circles. So that is what I'm going to be talking about in depth on inclusive AI. And I will also be talking about current data sets. This one is from Pantheon. I wrote a short paper on this for another company where I was an advisor for a short period of time. This is a slide that you think I may have taken a screenshot of and put it. I did. This is a screenshot, but you could actually go to pantheon.ai world now. And in the search bar, search for Michelle Obama. And you can see that she is, her professional title is noted as companion. She is a companion to her spouse. That's all she is. And this one, I will share the paper with you and I will show you that this is how when we talk about inclusive AI and being able to build inclusive AIs and taking public data sets to build inclusive AIs, when I see something like that, how is this going to help us build that inclusive AI? We can't. So this is an example that the fact that even now, just 5 minutes before, I was able to search in Pantheon.world and find out that she's still coded as companion, even though I wrote a paper on it and I published it, and doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the stage, that's the level we are in. I'm going to talk about it and how to build inclusive AI data sets and how to build inclusive models and how to have inclusive teams, all of that in detail. And also we are going to go into the very turbulent ocean of emotion AI, which is now the topic currently trending outside in the AI ethics world. And I'm going to talk about the categories of and theories of emotions and what they are and which ones are more scientifically valid and which ones are being now used to build emotion AI. And you may have guessed it, they are all built on the not so scientifically valid ones, and even the scientifically valid ones are not so valid. So I'm going to talk more about this and show you what the different emotion theories are like, just a quick walkthrough on what they all are. And I will also show you how emotions are coded into AI algorithms now, what we are using as ground truth, and I will let you judge for yourself whether those things should be used as ground truth and if they are based on science or not. And that's my intro. And if you have questions, I would like to take a pause here and ask, see if you have more questions for me on this subject. And
Susanna, I want to add one thing. I did a session at Weekly Wednesday as a webinar to introduce people to Emotions AI. And so I'm very thankful that you come from your cognitive research background, also as an AI ethicist, to tell us what's the real foundation behind it. So we have put that together as and I didn't realize how controversial this was. I knew that it seemed kind of intrusive to think that somebody can get into my head and understand what my real emotions are and not believe what I'm saying on the surface. And marketers are using it's marketed as a good thing for healthcare in every possible field. So we put that together as a Emotions AI webinar. So if somebody wants to kind of learn this as a market and all the different applications and the reality of where it is, then that's a good place to get started. I'm just sharing that link on the chat. Thank you, Susanna.
Okay. And I see some chat. Okay. So there's somebody is talking about the golden rule. Michael, do you want to come and explain what that is, or Michael still here? You can all, you don't have to turn on your camera, but you can turn on your microphone and talk, because I do want to understand what your thoughts are so far on this.
Yes. Part background noise, I'm driving, but the golden rule is, which is quoted all the time, is do unto others is you would have them do unto you. So what you're doing is I want to be treated this way, therefore I will treat others that way, which might be okay. It's but I heard this explained by Peter Fortunato, who's actually a very amazing person involved in real estate and creative financing and things. And he changed that around and said, this isn't actually correct. That is basically you want to do unto others as they would have them do unto them. In other words, what does the other person really want? That's actually the inclusiveness and it has a inclusiveness and a diversity aspect of what I'll do unto someone as I would have them do unto me, versus finding out what the other person wants and then doing to them what they want, that how they want to be treated, how they want to be included, etc. And I mean that's also very high level of consultative type, any kind of consultative process type thing of, or a customer. What is the out of 50 countries that you want to sell this product to, what are the different 50 country people, what do they want versus what, do we think they want?
Yes, it is. It's about, I don't think many people there in the corporate setting are actually looking at different perspectives, like you said, and they are also not, willing to actually even consider that whatever I am developing, whatever solution I am developing should be inclusive enough to have the input of everybody else. It almost feels like maybe that will, mess up with the features of my model, that classifiers. I mean, it won't mess up with anything. It will actually help it become more better, I feel, and that it's not what I feel also. It's actually based on science that the more you include the lived experiences of others for whom your product is being built, it's actually going to make your product very better. So that's it's different ways it's being told, but for me, I'm thinking at an operationalizing level within the corporate industry itself. And that only happens when we can actually crack through all the power structures within companies and also have everyone given equal input at the table, equal funding for all the equal inputs at the table. It takes a lot, and at each level, there is like at the higher level, from the outside, you can ask for advocacy and you can ask for regulation and moratoriums like the UN has called on. But within the company itself, there is a way to operationalize that. And that is what I hope I can enable everyone. Through all of these classes, I'm not somebody like, Sudha is a professional instructor and a professional professor. She's good at what she does. But what I'm trying to do is more of an advocacy level of training, that I want people to go into organizations and actually build inclusive systems right now within the current structure, whatever it's there within their companies, and be able to do that.
Susanna, if you don't mind, I want to add one thing. You're trying to be very humble about what you're doing, but that's okay. One of the things I do is I do teach AI at Stanford, at Barcelona Technology School, multiple places, and Business School of AI. And I found that AI is always built by a lot of different people. There is that Susanna who can go and create a groundswell of people within a week in the AI development cycle in companies. And they exist, and there are official jobs called AI ethicists, and there are several jobs that don't have the word ethics or anything related to inclusion or anything like that in the title. But it is a lot of different jobs, variety of different roles. And even data scientists are doing that, data engineers are doing that. And then a lot of non-tech roles are involved in building AI, because then it comes with a business risk, or it impacts rest of the business in some form. So my calling I see is, I won't call it calling, but at least what I'm trying to do in the AI ethics side of things is partner with people like you who are bringing expertise in this area and know the reality of what is happening in industry. This is not like, okay, this is bad, AI is biased and it is hurting the world this way. And there are a lot of AI ethicists who talk about it, teach about it. I want to teach anybody who is working in tech, who wants to work in tech, who wants to make a difference and do a normal job. You don't want to go pick up a fight. You just want to do your job, but do this right, armed with knowledge on what is inclusive AI, what is AI biased, how to build responsible AI. So that is our motivation to bring this class and a previous class. And so if anybody signs up for this class, I'm not interested in holding content. So I'm going to give them recording of 6 hours from the previous sessions so they can get a foundation and then go change the world as part of the job, or at least even if they're getting paid for this, they can benefit from that and do the right thing.
I don't know what happened to my chat window. Okay. So Alicia has said something about experience or written about the cost of ignoring invisible communities. This is about the cost of racism. Okay. There is in the course itself, when I go to the emotion theories, I mean, like I can give you a preview of what I'm going to cover, because this whole emotion AI field itself, it's based on psychology. It's based on the emotion theories developed in the last 100 years by psychologists. And to give you a prelude to that, what it means is most of it is based on Western psychology. So let me be very clear on that. Whatever AI system that is being developed to detect or predict emotions, human emotions, is being developed solely on Western psychology. There's no Eastern or any other input. It is being developed on what the Western society has deemed as empirical theories of psychology, empirical theories of emotion. And this is what we have now. And as you know, from a Western and Eastern, there are like lots of differences in how we perceive even our cultural and even our emotional landscape. And that is not included in any of these. So this is just Western psychological theories. And these are the 3 categories. And within these 3 categories, there are a bunch of theories under them. And I will actually go through this one. I don't know what happened to my slide there, but yeah, I will correct that. It talks about the James canon theory and the canon-Bart theory and all of those other theories. And it will slowly come back down to this one, which is Paul Ekman's 6 basic emotions theory. And this is the theory that is being now used to train most AI systems on how to predict human emotions. And I will go more into depth into the other theories. This is Fluchek's Wheel of Emotions and the Circle of Emotions by James Russell. But this one, in order to answer Alicia's question on inclusion of other communities, this whole theory itself, Paul Ekman, I don't know the year, but it was in the 1960s. I can find that for you. He went into, he thought emotions were universal. And he thought the best way to try to prove his theory is to go to a tribe that adds, very low level of contact with the outside world, and then show them a different flashcards. And then he actually failed in the first one, which he never writes about, but he did manage to get that. His team managed to get it done in the second trial. This tribe is in Papua Guinea, and they are called the Fore tribe, F-O-R-E, Fore tribe. They are still there. And what he did was he wanted to find out if we showed certain things, certain images, and they would be, whether they can detect happiness, sadness, anger, disgust, all of those, emotions. And it's a long story, but he did manage to say, yes, the emotions are universal. So I proved it by going to this tribe that had no contact with humans for so many centuries now. So that's why everybody now in the AI community uses Paul Ekman's 6 basic emotions theory. And I will go into detail on how wrong he was on many, many levels. And within the the psychology and cognitive science community, Paul Ekman's theory is not a scientifically validated theory, and it's not a respected theory at all. But only this, we are all in our own silos, right? You talk to a psychology student and you tell me you built something on Paul Ekman's 6 basic emotion theory, and I will be like, what? Why did you do that? But if you talk to an engineer and they are like, this is amazing, this theory, and they are, it's as a whole. I may get into it but later on in the class, but how upset I was when I was initially introduced this and told by the engineering community that this is what they are going with. My level of shock, shell shock, they say, was like very culture shock, shell shock. It was huge. And then they went into this one. They actually liked this one, Pluchek's color
Susanna,
theory.
Susanna, I have actually heard from tech about this Paul Ekman theory, that they make it look like that's ground truth. There are 6 emotions,
Yes.
and every big tech company uses the same thing. So it's very hard to displace that because they think it is the right thing that everybody else is doing. So any new person who comes with any other tech layer on it is just saying, okay, we'll do the same thing. So it's kind of established, and their data sets which are biased just based on that, which is floating around.
Yes. And the theory itself is biased, and theory itself was built on shaky ground. But the point is, we can just say, oh, they already have started it. They have now built an entire system out of it. You can't say, I'm just gonna let it go now. No. We are fighting for them to not let it go, because this is going to impact every single human on earth, and we cannot allow that. And on my own advocacy level, I managed to convince them to not go with this, to go with this, but even that this is James Russell's theory of emotions, and even this itself has so many problems with it. And I managed to convince them that all of them are questionable. But doesn't mean that I stopped them from doing it. I was not successful in stopping them from doing it, but I put the seed of doubt in there. And at least that I was able to do that and put the pause in there helps the industry a lot more. So that is what I'm going to talk about. And Alicia, I think you have a question. I'm sorry, I will stop sharing.
No, thank you for all of that. Yeah, you actually hit the mark in terms of explaining a lot of things. So I've just walked out of, if you're all familiar with ACES, it's the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. Our national conference was just this last ended on Saturday. And when you're in all Native American environments talking about these things, it's highly different than talking about it outside. And so I'm actually very grateful, and I'm hoping that this presentation available as a presentation, but hearing about Paul Ekman and Pluchek's wheel it's very apparent. It's not universal. Let's just put it that way. And I'm sure there's some questions in terms of methods. My main question is that acknowledging that, to Sudha's point, this is what big tech is basically, they're mostly basing development off of Ekman's wheel or Ekman's 6 emotions. You've got the other 2 that you were sharing. Is anyone actually working actively? Because this is my interest, and I'm a doctoral student over at Arizona State University doing human and social dimensions of science and technology. So I'm not the engineer, I'm not the programmer, I'm not the technical person, but I am the person looking at the social and human sides of things. And so I would appreciate, whether it's as a follow-up to all of this or anything else, is there anyone else who is talking about this as a rebuttal to or something in context to Ekman, Pluchek, James Russell, for, either a critique or, other ways of actually looking at this for other communities, not just some kind of a mainstream Western colonial approach to it?
The other communities right now, it's almost there. I would say no, but at least within this, within the Western philosophy itself, people like Kate Crawford, and I can give you a few more names. They are actually fighting very vocally and verbally, and almost at an abusive level. They are like pushing back on the industry and saying, no, you cannot build on these, shaky theories, and you cannot have this launched. And all of those advocacies, regardless of how we feel about their individual approaches, have worked. Have worked to stop, put a moratorium at least on some of these things. And I feel like when the UN called a temporary moratorium on it, okay, so all of this helped us get here. Now let's use this time wisely, and let's educate people on why these are biased and why it is shaky ground.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, definitely, yeah. And in terms of Eastern philosophy, like, people just don't even bother studying it to even come and include it at the table. They just don't want to think somehow that is not empirically validated. So one example I can give you on how this impacts within the inclusive, diverse, AI system building process is in psychology, in Western psychology, there is something called the locus of control. You must be aware of it because you are a human science student. The locus of control is, you perceive your ability to take action is limited to your perception of the events outside. And, whatever action you can take is limited to that. So you should actually look at your own perception, how you have perceived that manager not giving you a promotion, or, your coworker saying this thing. It's all in your head. It's in your imagination. It's how you have been built. You are a product of the environment. So you just have to change your outlook, center yourself, go to your locus of control, and push back on the environment, because the environment is not against you. This is being said to communities of color and people who, we all know the system itself is rigged against them from centuries onwards. Colonialism, imperialism, as the system itself is rigged. And then you tell somebody in therapy, if you go and tell them, it's just your perception of your manager's, comments on the meeting. Has nothing to do with them. They are actually trying to help you. All of those things are not true. And that person is going to eventually degrade into not even a shell of themselves, but be so emotionally harmed over the years. And the reason why in therapy, psychologists are not able to figure this out, only now they have awakened to this. And there are like some therapists actually calling this out and saying, we cannot say to communities of color based on this emotion, science that we have developed, that it is about your locus of control, that it is about your perception of the environment, because the environment itself is rigged now against them. So we have to actually include that and say, yes, you cannot change it now because you are now not helpless, but there are ways where you could actually find a way out to find your agency within whatever is the box that you're being put in. Find your agency within that, and helping them like that. It's a recent awakening in the healthcare industry by social psychologists, especially therapists. But even that hasn't gone very far, because they don't even understand so many 400, 500 years of abuse that slavery and colonialism and imperialism. They don't have an understanding of that. So it's a great time to be around, but it's also a great time to use whatever knowledge you have and start distributing it around, which is what I believe, and that's what I am doing here. So, and I should look at the chat. Let me see. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so that you put the Great Crawford. Yeah, Great Crawford is, she's actually very good. And there are a few more people that have started talking about this that have actually come out, especially in the therapist region that I talked about. They have all come out talking about how this has become very hurtful to the communities of color, that we need to move past it and start actually giving their agency back to them in some way so that they can fight on through it. And that's the whole point of this. When you are trying to build an inclusive AI, it's not about one aspect that you look at it. You just bring somebody in and you bring someone to the table and that's it, you are done. It's not like that. It's actually understanding where that person who came to sit at your table, who doesn't look like you, how is their life has been, how have they lived, and what is their cultural background, what are they coming from their socioeconomic backgrounds, and what are their emotion theories of their culture. And that's what I tried to write an article long back on kindness, because everyone is talking about AI robots being kind, and kindness being taught to AI, and kindness being taught into robots and programmed into them so that they can go help in the healthcare industry. Before that, we used to have like therapy dogs. Now they are talking about therapy robots. And it's a little insulting, because the brain of a dog is much more advanced than the algorithms that are inside a robot. But it is very insulting to hear that statement if you are an engineer, and you will feel like, I am not somebody who's supportive of technology, but that that's where the boundaries are. That's what we have to cut through, because I'm not insulting any engineer that is here by saying that the algorithm is not as smart, because I worked in the actual affective computing algorithm department of a very major tech company, and one of the leading scientists in that field actually told me the current AI system has the brains of a fruit fly. And it was good to hear her say it, because if I said it, if the algorithms of today have the brains of a fruit fly, or not even as smart as a fruit fly, which has the lifespan of 24 hours, I would be very much, people would totally think I am an anti-technologist, which is far from it. I'm not that. But I want people to understand that whatever thing that you are interested in, that you see your Alexa device saying back to you, or your Siri talking back to you, it's not actually intelligence. It's not actually programmed, kindness, or programmed, emotions into it. Understand that this is just a decision tree talking back to you, and it's not the same as your dog or your puppy or whatever is that's actually giving you an input. It's based on a semantic knowledge of the emotion. It's based on conscious knowledge of the emotion response that you have put out there, and it is responding back to that in a natural way. That is not there. And like Sudha says, all AI is math, and math is math. Math is neither good, math is neither bad, and math is math. And let's not confuse there. I hope we can build an AI system, or inclusive AI system in the world, that is augmenting our lives, that is supportive of our lives, and is actually a tool in our lives to help us live better lives, but not the other way around. It cannot be a master of us. It cannot be a slave of us. I don't like either of those terms. The reason I don't have an Alexa device is because I don't want to be yelling at something. Even if it is something like a thing that I am yelling out, it's a biofeedback. When I am showing my aggression towards even an inanimate thing, it has changed who I am as a person. So that's what in child development psychology, when the Alexa devices and all of those Siri devices came out, lot of child development psychologists were coming out and saying, yes, it's great now that we are an adult and we grew up in a different environment, and now we see this Alexa device. It's okay for us to yell at it to say stop and all of those things. But children who are born with it, who don't have this other history of growing up without it, actually see this in a different way than how we see it. And it is changing them emotionally. It is changing them psychologically. And children naturally tend to interrupt people more often now. This is proven, and I could back it up with a lot of studies and people who have studied this in the last 5-6 years. Children do actually respond back, cut you midway in a conversation more often at a younger age than previous generations. And there is a reason for that. It's okay for you to say, stop Alexa, stop Google, and shut up or shut down. You can say whatever it is, and it doesn't respond back to you and say, I'm hurt, or how dare you say that to me. It doesn't say that, and it just does what you're asking it to do. And children don't have that.
Susanna, can I just add one thing?
Yes.
I actually teach another course called AIX that's not available currently. And it is about designing the AI interface with a human-centered touch, to think through that. And as part of that research, I found that the way Alexa is designed and the way Google Home is designed is consciously factoring this in. So the designers or the engineers, the team that puts this together has consciously given a certain personality to Alexa to be very coy. She's a female, she's a she's coy, and she's very apologetic and acts dumb. She wants to disarm the person who's yelling at her, because Amazon is just measuring engagement. As long as you're engaging and continuing to use Alexa, they have data on you. Whereas Google Home will never apologize. Try that. What you call it stupid, you call it whatever, it will say, I'm just learning. I will try to do better, and will ask as an adult, more like a guy. And that's intentional design. So there's a lot more that goes into manipulating us and our interaction. And so it's not just the math behind it that is kind of taking a life form. It's the humans who are creating that. So when I think of inclusive AI and what you're teaching us, I want us to be aware that we have a role to play at every step of the way, not just in the math part, and stay away saying, I'm not a coder, I don't know data, or stay away from it, because you can play it all.
Yeah. It's actually, we don't understand how much, the technology around us has changed us. And that's a whole nother subject on how we have all been changed by the technology that is around us. And we talk to devices now, we have changed our tone to talk to them, and we feel more entitled to have things delivered within a short period of time. Everything about us has changed a lot. And there was recently during the pandemic when, Instacart was taking over 4 days to deliver something. It felt unnatural because I was so used to Amazon delivering the next day, and then Instacart is saying, I will take, 3 or 4 days to get this thing to you, Instacart or some other, service that I was using. So we got used to that. And now has that made me a little more impatient? Probably, because when something is catering to me immediately, I become more entitled to that. And that has changed me also. And that is never talked about. It becomes only dangerous, especially when you are at an emerging, psychological landscape, which is at the childhood stage. It becomes too dangerous because children have no idea on how, one of my nephews, he plays one song continuously, one song or one story, ask Google to play it thousands of times. And they have to actually put in a timer and say, at some point, this device will be plugged out of the wall, so you can't make it do that. And it's not a good way for him to learn that it has to be unplugged from the wall so that he can't order it anymore. But that's where we are right now. We have come to that stage right now that we we haven't taught the child to know that, I will talk to you about the story for, 3 times, or, sing this rhyme for you for 3 times, but then we have to move on. But as a human being, he is not understanding that now, because the human and the AI now in his room, they don't have any differentiation as far as he is concerned. So that's where we are going now, and that's a whole nother topic, and I can share more resources on that, on how psychologists and emotion theories are studying the impact of current technology on our emotion psyche and on all the children's development. That's a whole nother area. But the area about inclusive AI and emotions, and whether emotions can be trained into machines, and whether that is a good idea or not, whether that's possible or not, what can we do about what is it? Well, it's already being launched now. What can we do now? And what is this UN ban about? And why is the UN and the AI for Now Institute is calling a ban on this? Why are they calling a ban on it? What are they going to do about it? So all of those things we will talk about.
Susanna, I want to do a time check since we said 1 hour, people can audit.
Oh,
the
okay,
class.
sorry.
So no, this is very good. I love it. And, when you say tomorrow's class is 1 hour, I'm just like, I wish she would do that for 2 hours. So can you tell us a little bit for people? I see a couple students who have come back, who have already signed, who are getting ready for the class. Can you tell us what to expect? I know it's 28th tomorrow, 9 o'clock, and 30th, 2 days from there on 9 o'clock are the 2 sessions of your class. And then you'll have office hours. Is it going to focus on emotions AI? Is there something more, or what should people expect from the course?
I will actually, dive into more details on how to build an inclusive team and what it means to build an inclusive team, and also show the actual science behind emotions AI and the actual methodology on how they actually build emotions AI. I'll just show that because I want people to understand when an informed opinion is different from an uninformed opinion. When people are throwing opinions around on LinkedIn, I can see most of them are uninformed about it. And when they are, just simply, when somebody says, an AI ethicist or somebody like me opposes a new technology, everyone is jumping around and saying, making an uninformed opinion on something that I am informed about, and I'm, telling you that this is not a good idea. And people are just, jumping around based on anger, on why you are against this and all of that. So I want people to have this informed opinion. To have an informed opinion, you must understand how emotions AI is currently built, how many applications it is being used around you, how it is being used to hire you, decide you for hiring, decide you for firing, decide your financial records, your health records, how many ways it is being used currently, and how it is being developed, and what goes on behind the engine, and how it is being incorporated in the data sets that are being used as ground truth to build this whole AI model, and the data sets that I used as ground truth to build an AI system and a model. So I will just show you all of that. And I think Sudha will provide all the links. So I will show you all of that and walk you through it. And also Sudha and me, we both will give you a homework on actually build.
I love giving homework to people.
So Sudha will not let you go without a homework. So there will be a homework and she will tell you more about it.
Shall I just jump in and say something? Because one of the things I hear is people who are, all of people who are working are very concerned about their time. So your class is 2 hours on the 28th morning, 9 o'clock, 30th morning, 9 o'clock, 1 hour, 2 hours total commitment. And then they can have office hours to follow up with you. The homework I'm talking about is as an optional thing for people who want to go more hands-on and work in a team setting. There will be 4 people in a team and with multiple different backgrounds. So you will never find another person similar to your background in the team. And that's what we do as a standard on Business School of AI in all our classes, is to simulate a real, close to real work environment, right? And then there's a platform called Playment, which is about data annotations, which is about labeling. So we'll give you an exercise as a homework to go do some annotations to look at data to make it inclusive. So that's and it's visual data. So we just take some images and tag them right with Susanna's guidance. So that's the exercise, and that's optional, and it's not, requirement for you to earn your certificate, but we would highly recommend it because we've had students who do projects together and kind of more than just the deliverable of what you give for your homework. And it will not be more than 2 hours of your time outside of class if you want to get an idea of that. But the exercise you'll go with other students with different perspective will be very fascinating. You might think, I'm just labeling data and then an AI is going to train it. How many different ways can we label it? And you'll find that 4 people in the team will have 4 different ways of labeling the same data for solving the same problem. So that's what I wanted to say. I will share the link for the class here. Just give me a minute, guys. And does anybody have any questions before we let Susanna go? I see Pat here, Dan here, Pam, past students, and
Hello,
Alicia.
Pam. Hello, Pam and Pat.
Hi, Susanna. It's great to see you guys, both you and Susanna.
Pam, you already took the class. Pat, you already took the class, right?
Right.
So do you want to tell us what you expect out of the new class, or any questions?
Well, I'm looking forward to do a hands-on. I was talking about ethics as a service product offering, and I'm actually meeting with some industry professionals to talk about that right after this.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in, not just talking about what we have to do, but really showing people how they can do it.
Okay. So you're looking forward to the actual hands-on piece. So you took the career pivot to AI ethics, which gave you the foundation, but now you want to go more hands-on to do something with it for real.
That's right. And as Susanna, as you were saying, that you see a lot of things that are on LinkedIn or other social media where people are talking about, may not know the right things and maybe talking about what maybe driven by emotion.
Yeah.
I think it's also an opportunity to not just get into all that distraction and really focus on how do we do it right? What are your options?
Yes. And Alicia is looking for some links, and I think the links are already on the Business School of AI, but Sudha may drop them.
Let me just find the direct page for sign up so people don't have to go, because I have this Emotions AI free class. We have a lot of free things we do because I'm one of those people who kind of overdoes the sharing part, because I don't believe in just the content, and I believe in the dialogue that comes from the content. And so even in the classes, I think the real thing is in the learning from the discussions and your fellow conversations with teammates. Okay, so this should have 2 links. It says $4.50. That is for a larger version, which has multiple master classes. That's not what you need. Susanna's class is $2.50, and we are also including a learning pathway to AI ethics as a foundation course. That is a separate course that I'm just going to add in for anybody who signs up for this course, so that if you're new to this, you're coming at it from a different perspective. So you can learn the foundation pieces on demand. So you can learn the pieces that you want from there. But this course will start tomorrow. So Alicia, I don't know how you found us. Happy to have you here. I'm very fascinated by your thinking of discussion. So one of the things you could do, and I say this of all my students, is there's no one prescriptive deliverable that we give. So you could do the homework with the team, if that's what you want to do. You could actually say, I want to publish something as fundamental research now that you find a gap in that. Maybe we can guide you towards that. So I have some students who will go write blog post. Pamela did a blog post of my last class, I remember. There are people who for whom it's more natural that way. And people like you are going to go publish research and bring that into the world of technology. And so maybe we can help you with that to come up with some kind of research, and maybe your class project could be that, and your fellow teammates could help you find the material for that. And you could seed it here because this class is not going to run for months and months, but you could get started with that, seed it, and then maybe we can help you with that.
Thank you so much. This was very, all of this is very good. So hopefully I'm going to try to tune in for tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so with that, let's wrap up. And those people who are coming back here, I see that at least one person didn't pick up that certificate. So I will follow up offline. If you want to, so if you, actually other people have dropped up, so I can tell you that now. So if you finish up the course, if you go to the end of it, there is an option to download your certificate with a unique code for each student so that you can put it on your LinkedIn. Pam, can you just go to the syllabus and find out? You should be able to download for the previous Career Pivot to AI Ethics course that you took earlier. You should be able to find a certificate. I know it worked for other students, so, but it has a unique code. So I cannot do it for you because it has a very unique.
No, thank you for telling me, because I didn't go back there, right? So that's all on me. Yeah.
So that should be fine. So you should be able to do that. And then this course will have its own separate certificate. The previous one you did is called Career Pivot to AI Ethics. And so you would get a certificate on that since you finished that. And then this one is called AI Ethics, Inclusive AI. So we have like AI ethics, inclusive AI, and then we have one on responsible AI. So this is the inclusive AI one because Susanna is the queen of that. So thank you. So should we wrap up, Susanna?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay. So I have actually posted the link here. But if people want to go and find the course, it is called AI Ethics course. It's called AI Ethics, Responsible and AI and Inclusive AI. If you go to Business School of AI, you will find a link directly, which will take you there. This is the $250 course, and you'll get the free learning pathway to AI ethics. And then we want to limit to a few set of students, not more than 20 in the class. So we want to make sure this class is right for you. So if it is not, we will give you resources and, help you go learn at your own pace till you're ready for more of our classes. So talk to us, and we are here. Thank you, everybody. With that, we should wrap up. And thank you, Susanna. And I will see you online at the class tomorrow, 28th, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 18-hour Europe and Nigeria time, and 1 p.m. in Brazil. So look forward to meeting the new students. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm stopping the live stream. Thank you, everybody who's watching on the live stream. You can reply back to wherever you're seeing us, and we will get back to you. Or you can go to Business School of AI and find the link and come register. And the class is tomorrow. AI Ethics Inclusive.